Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, Beefloaf. This show is being powered by From the 108 and FromThe108.com, where you can get all of our content, top to bottom, blogs, podcasts, and videos, including the world-famous Sunday Soak. You can also get all of our merch there as well, including the infamous Wave Sucks and hashtag 108 in Garbs. Currently, we have a Wake Me for the Parade koozie selling at FromThe108.com. It's $5. Go get one, go get 10. It's the kind of thing that never goes out of style. This show is powered by you, the loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat, because that's how we get paid, and that's how we continue to make the content you know and love. Tonight's guest... He's been a college football writer at CBS Sports, and he's currently the co-host of the Cover 3 podcast. More importantly to me and you, though, he's a longtime diehard White Sox fan who in a previous life authored a Twitter account, Not Hawk, and sometimes dormant Write Sox account, which we're going to talk about today. A veritable OG of White Sox Twitter whose roots can be traced back to the old country. Tom Fornelli, welcome to the Au Jus again.
Thank you for having me. Goddamn, I look good in that photo, don't I?
Well, that's what I wonder. I heard you took up golf. I assume that you know this is what this is result. Right,
yeah. You take like 1,000 swings and it really gets that oblique tightened up and going.
Absolutely. What inspired you to start golfing? As someone we're similar age. I think I'm a little older than you, but we're similar age, and I never golfed. You know.
I played a little bit as a child in that my grandfather was a avid golfer, and he would take me, like, because I went to Florida every summer with my grandparents on a vacation. They would take me and my sister, and my grandpa would get me to go to the driving range with him and try to play golf with him, and he would try to teach me how to play golf. And I was terrible because, you know, it's golf, it's hard, and I was a kid. And my approach at the time was I already played baseball, I already played football, I was playing basketball, and I was like okay at all three of them. Like, I was good at all those sports. Why would I want to waste my time playing something I sucked at? So I was like, this is lame. I'm not doing it. Well, I'm 27 now, and
sure, Jan.
I'm older than 27 now, and I can't play football, baseball, or basketball for shit anymore. So I recently moved out to the suburbs. I am
congrats.
Right down the street from a golf course, 30 to 45 seconds away from my house, a public course. And the wife suggests to me, she's like, well, you know, you're not really quite the athlete you used to be anymore, but you kind of have that itch. So why don't you finally just go learn how to play golf? So she got me some lessons. I started taking them back in April. Was taking them pretty much every week since then. A lot of range sessions. And finally on last week, I went and played my first round. And now I've got another tee time scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. So I will be back out there tomorrow.
Oh, shit. You're in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? This is unfortunate, Tom, that you're not playing anything else anymore, because I was hoping with the big Barstool move here to Chicago that you were going to get me and the 108 boys in on the Big Cat basketball game, because I played basketball all the way through high school, and I played for a good team and everything. I can't really jump anymore, but I still go out with my daughter and shoot around. My daughter's 13, so we'll play one-on-one, and they still I can play old man basketball. I was hoping you're going to help us get in on that game, man.
I don't know about your situation totally, but I don't think you and I are rich enough to be playing with Dan these days. I think
that's probably true.
Dan's running with a higher class of athlete, and I don't mean skill level. I just mean wealth level. You know, he's got his own like personal trainer, basketball coach taking care of stuff for him. And actually, don't let him sandbag you. Dan is a better basketball player than he lets on.
Oh, okay. I was not aware of that. Celeste Pappy wants to know, Happy Gilmore golf swing. Is that what you're employing right now?
No, my coach is very impressed by my swing. So
okay. You're a natural, huh? You're a natural.
He loves the tempo of my swing. That's what he keeps telling me. He's like, you know what? You've got a great tempo, a natural tempo, an athletic tempo. And I'm like, cool. Awesome. Ball goes straight, me don't care.
I was gonna say, he sees a mark. He sees you're gonna keep paying him for a while, so he's got to shower you with the compliments. I understand.
No, you know what? That's one thing I love about my coach, because I called him the other day, and I was because I had my lesson scheduled and I couldn't go because I had other stuff come up, and I was like, hey, I need to cancel this week's lesson. Can we just do next week instead? Because I got some stuff I want to fine tune. And he said, actually, Tom, I didn't think you were coming back for any more lessons. I really don't think you need any more.
Oh,
so
wow,
I told him, I says, well, I would like one more, because there are again, I have no idea how to putt. I really, in the sand, I am kind of lost and helpless and flailing. So it's like I do have a couple finishing touches I'd like to figure out before I go back out there. There's some things you couldn't really learn until you were out on the course playing that I learned last week.
That's impressive, I'm being truthful here. I'm not messing around here, because you're right. There is that itch to kind of like compete or whatever. You never got into poker or anything, Tom? I know you're sports
poker.
Bet. Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
It's actually how I met my wife, was playing poker.
Okay, all right, beautiful. Yeah, no, that's glad to hear that. I used to play a lot online, not so much in person, but another great sport, quote unquote. But the reason I have you on here, we had set this up well over a month ago. But in between the time that we kind of confirmed this and the chance we were having to talk today, you brushed off the old Write Sox blog. And it had been 3 years, it looks like, since you had decided to scream into the internet anything about the White Sox in long form. I see tweets and stuff or whatever. And you chose to scream into the internet almost pure apathy. So give us the highlights, because the first sentences of the blog, An Existential Crisis, which you can find, and it's linked to this YouTube. What the fuck am I doing here? So, Tom, what the fuck are you doing there?
I don't know. I mean, I was just sitting there, like I was on vacation last week, and I just got up and I was, like I wrote in the blog, I kind of was trying to stay as disconnected from the internet as possible, because I figured even if I wasn't really on a beach somewhere sitting around, it's like if I didn't have to be on there for work, I would just kind of like to stay away from it as much as possible. But my morning routine, wake up, have the coffee, check the news, read whatever, see what's going on. And I was scanning through some stuff, and I saw, I think it was Nightingale or Heyman, who was like, Astros are interested in Dylan Cease. And I was like, okay, well, so that's what's going on with the White Sox right now. Great. They're going to trade one of the decent guys that they have. But I go through it, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, all right, so what the hell do the Astros even have? Do they have enough to get Cease? Because last I checked, like most of their prospect, like that class that they had kind of came and went. And I'm like, aren't they kind of barren at this point? And then as I'm sitting there, I'm going to like MLB.com's like top 30 prospects, Houston Astros. And I click it, and it's like, why? Who fucking cares? Like, oh, okay. I want to find out which 18-year-old we're going to trade Dylan Cease for. If we trade Dylan Cease for an 18-year-old, I haven't been paying attention this year. I'm not going to pay attention next year. Like, what the fuck do I care? So it just kind of came out. Like I was hit with this, and I was like, all right. Haven't written in a long time, at least not about the White Sox. And it was building up, and it'd been building up all year. Like James has been my just whipping post for my White Sox thoughts since last season for the most part. And just general apathy that I have. Like earlier in the year, like I was fucking around, like it was kidding, but it was also only half kidding. It's like, all right, I am auditioning other teams to replace the White Sox. Like I was watching Phillies games. I was watching Mets games, because I wanted to get an East Coast team, but I wanted to be in the National League, because I didn't want to just have any kind of conflicts there.
You're Gumar. You were getting your Gumar lined up. Yeah, and then see what happens.
And of course, as soon as I start watching the Phillies and the Mets, they go to shit too. But the point, it was just like the overall feeling is just that with this franchise, like here we go again. It's the same shit every single time. And it's been the same problems that crop up every single year. And then they do nothing to change the approach or to try to fix the problem. It's just, well, we'll try a different person in the same role. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, we'll just buy more relievers. It's like, that'll fix it. And just the dread and the sense that, you know what, like the way that this season started, you knew like the season was over in a week. It felt like there was the opening series against Houston, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, they played good in that first series.
Yeah. But then reality just kind of slapped you in the face, and you were like, shit, it's this again. It's the same shit that it was. It wasn't just Tony. It turns out these players just suck. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so
the core has gone bad.
Yeah, like I was on here before the season started, and I wasn't like super excited, but there was that natural kind of preseason optimism, like, all right, new manager, new this, new that, maybe things will work out. And you got 2 weeks before you realized it wasn't going to work out. So it's like, great, there goes all that. So, but the problem for me is that I know that if it doesn't work, and clearly it hasn't. They're 40 and 60. I don't know what the record is at this point. It's not good.
Yeah, they're 19 under. I think they're 41 and 60.
I'm underestimating them. But like, is anything going to change once they miss the playoffs this year? Like, is Rick Hahn, if they're doing a retool, is Rick Hahn still the guy in charge of it? Is he still a guy that, like I can't give him 100% of the blame because the trades he made at the time all were reasonable trades.
Sure.
Players
Yeah.
just didn't work out. And that's more on the players than it is the GM. Now, where it's on Rick is he hasn't done nearly enough to supplement it. Like he got the prospects, but once they're ready to win, you have to actually know how to build the competitive roster around that in other areas. You can't just go get top prospects and then have them, all right, they'll go be great and everything else will take care of itself.
Good luck. They're all stars. You don't have to draft anything else, so nothing's come up from the minors and helped. And then supplementing in free agency. I mean, it's okay to hit him. I get he's not allowed to spend at the top of the market. It's okay to hit like a mid-level free agent occasionally or a low-level free agent occasionally to help.
Yeah, like an Andrew Benintendi signing is supposed to be like a finishing piece kind of signing where it's like, okay, he's not a superstar, but he's an upgrade over what you had and he's supplemental to what you needed.
Yeah.
But he's not supplementing anything. Now he's like an league average hitter and he's the best guy on the fucking team. So it's just, besides Luis, but it's
Luis,
but it's like, so, okay, when they lose, what's going to happen? Like they're going to fire Pedro and let Rick hire another manager and then throw out the same roster next year, minus a few actually key pieces and say, oh, let's go get him again, boys. I don't know. It's like, that's what it is. It's like, what the fuck am I doing here? What's the point of any of this at this point? Because I mean, I've been watching this team for a very long time and I'm just kind of reaching that point where it's like, like I'm dead inside. There's no hope left in it to me. Like until they start winning, I don't know why I should bother giving a shit.
Yeah, it's an interesting conclusion, Tom, because, and we've had a lot of season ticket holders talking to us 108ers and a lot of people that we interact with on Twitter, similar kind of feelings, particularly with this team. And it's interesting to me because there have been a lot of patches in our White Sox fandom where they weren't good or where the expectations fell out from under them. But we never kind of got to this point. You said that this started maybe building sort of at the beginning of the year. Was it kind of this year only? Had it been bubbling for a while that you like this was heading there? Is some of this just like, hey, I'm a certain age, I'm into different things, and if you don't give me enough here, I got other things to fill my time. Like, how do you think you kind of completely got to this point?
It's not just an old person thing where it's like I've got other stuff because like baseball. I'm watching baseball still. I'm enjoying baseball and I'm watching other teams play. And I wrote about this too. Like, I like the rule changes. I think they have made for a better product as far as viewing on television. I've only been to one game in person and I will say it did move a little quick in person. Like you're so kind of used to the rhythm of everything. It's like, all right, I got to go piss. I got to go get a beer. And it's like, you do that, you come back and an inning and a half has gone by and you're like, what the fuck did it happen? So
yeah,
that's weird. But as far as viewing it television wise, I think it's a much improved product. But the White Sox are just, there's nothing to it to me. And yeah, I think it hit home this year, but it's probably been brewing for a while. And I think, the Tony La Russa thing is probably what started it, hiring Tony La Russa. And I think, honestly, you could probably tie a lot of what has happened to that. Not in that Tony La Russa is a bad manager, so the team failed because of it, because of what Tony was doing. But from the sense that, like, say you are a White Sox player and you're coming off the year where, you made the playoffs. Sure, it was the weird COVID season. You get knocked out by Oakland. You had Ricky in charge. They fire Ricky and you're like, okay, we're ready to, they're serious. They're going to take the next step. We're going to go do this next year, blah, blah, blah. Then they hire Tony La Russa. And the takeaway that I would have if I'm a player in that locker room is, well, if they don't take this shit seriously, why should I? You know what I mean? Like, if my boss, who's my ultimate boss, Jerry Reinsdorf, thinks that this is the fucking answer, he clearly doesn't give a shit. Why should I at this point? And like that quote yesterday, and I know this isn't the way he meant it, but it's what he said. When they asked Lucas Giolito about the possibility of being traded, he said, I'm cool with it. That's... Whether he meant it that way or not, the fact that he's saying that out loud into a microphone, I'm cool with it. Trade me. I don't give a shit. Get me the fuck out of here.
Oh, you're right in a way because all along he said that he's wanted to stay, and I'm a little bit friendly in the DMs with his dad, and I agree. His dad would tell you the same thing. He would love to be in Chicago. He loves Chicago, and the fact that he is resigned to the fate of fine, just deal me wherever is like very telling that he's not hanging on to it. He's just like, whatever, I'm out of here. That sort of shit. Absolutely terrible to see. So getting to this point, do you think any of it had to do, Tom, with any specific players or the fact that certain players didn't come through or injuries? You think any of this is like, uh, any certain sticking points out of that group for you that kind of helped cause?
I mean, it's the injuries have definitely played a role. Like Eloy can never play more than 10 straight games without something cropping up. Yon is missing half the season every single year. And these were guys who were supposed to be core pieces to what you were trying to do. So when your core pieces are missing entire portions of the year, large chunks of the year, it's hard to win around that, especially when, like, I think that it is often unfair the way we view Reinsdorf as far as spending money. Like, if you look at this team, they usually have a top 10 payroll. Now, that doesn't mean they're spending as much as they could. And it's also the way that they spend that money, in that they will spend the money on the quote unquote stars, and then they cheap out in every other aspect as far as like the bench and everything, where they're not willing to invest actual money into that. And they're not willing to invest as much money into off the field stuff that we see
Right.
other organizations putting in. So it's it's like your meme, the basically stay healthy. It's like they never stay healthy, so there's nothing behind it to help. There's no ballast, there's no support for when things are going wrong, and that's really the problem. And then you've got Tim, who was your spark plug, who is now 30, and
Right.
while he's kind of coming around lately, a guy who his game has always been built on contact and his speed and his to be able to make things happen. Was legs. He suffered leg injuries. He doesn't have the speed that he once had. And even when he's playing, he's not able to really go 100% like he had been before. So it's like a lot of those little soft little bleeders that he was able to turn into singles before, they're not singles. And it's also
Right.
impacting the ability to make hard contact, because so much of that comes from your legs. So it's not just the running the bases and the fielding. It impacts his ability. Those little singles into right that used to go over the second baseman and land in front of the right fielder, they're just going right to the second baseman now. He's losing 20 to 30 feet on him, and they're leading to more outs. So it's all of this shit coming to a head at the same time. And then you toss in Lance Lynn being whatever the fuck's going on with Lance Lynn right now. So
he's on pace, Tom, for the White Sox single season home run record.
Is
Floyd
he?
Bannister.
So we've got something to cheer for.
Floyd Bannister holds it 38 in 1987. Lance is at 28. I mean, he could get it even if he gets traded. Like, he's got one or two more starts.
I did not realize. Oh, that is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now I've got a reason to watch now.
or at least pay attention to box scores when Lance is in there. No, I totally agree with you. And the point about the Reinsdorf spending, like, yes, Reinsdorf is on the cheaper end of owners, but you're right. They have had a top 10 payroll. They did put the extra, like the penalty money towards Luis Robert to ensure that they lined him up. So, like, a lot of what they don't do is the stuff you can't see behind the scenes, right? The infrastructure, the international spending down there, and paying off Buscones and everything else that goes along with like kind of
scouting department, three guys,
actual analytics department as well. And they don't have an owner, they don't have a front office clever enough to work around that, right? You could be Billy Beane and not have all that stuff and still figure it out, right? But these guys are not those guys, and that's absolutely killed them. So I mean, yeah, it's just a little by little or more of that. And it's funny to watch this team in this era, because if Kenny Williams was in his prime right now, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. He could turn the roster over. We wait a year. We take one down year, and then boom, this team would be back. But the Hahn era, I don't know if he's not equipped. I don't know if the game has moved past these guys, and so they're just not smart enough to do it anymore, or if he's gun shy. But he's never able to turn the roster over quick enough and sort of like react to it. Like if I'm working with this team right now, I'm looking at Eloy Jimenez. Can we trade him somewhere? Because we're board locked with guys who can't move.
I would love to trade Eloy. I love Eloy, but I would trade him in a heartbeat.
You got to do something here, in my opinion. Another thing about getting to this point, I'm just curious from your standpoint, Tom. What about the White Sox style of play? The current style of play of this team can really turn some fans off. I look at back in the 2000s, early 2000s, after the division victory, they had some underwhelming seasons there, but they were fun to watch because they bashed the ball around. This team, in my opinion, is not as fun to watch. Is that any of the effect for you here? Is this kind of like, well, they're also a tough, brutal watch. We have to actually turn them on.
I mean, if they were winning, I wouldn't give a shit. But yeah, I think that if you're going to lose, at least lose in an entertaining way would probably help. But I don't think that really ultimately has any kind of say in how I feel about it, as much as it's just a complete lack of faith in what the organization is going to do. Because like you mentioned, are they behind it, or are they just, they've lost like pace with everybody else? Of course they have. And it's not Rick's fault. It's not Kenny's fault. It's the fact that the margins to find like that inefficiency, like, like when Billy Beane Moneyball, like everybody does all that shit now. There is no secret to it. Everybody's figured that out. So it's you're constantly looking for what's the next area we can take advantage of. But you can't find it unless you've got like 50 different data analysts whose sole job is to go through all these numbers, crunch all this shit, and see what pops up. And the White Sox don't have that. So by just that rule alone, they're never going to figure out what the next thing is to be ahead of everybody else, because they don't have anybody looking for it. It's all reactionary. I mean, Rick Hahn's Rick Hahn's got calling Hawk, who's probably telling him it's a battle of the bullpens. So he's going to sign every single goddamn reliever that's available to a huge contract, even though they're 32 and they're volatile.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, how much then for you is organizational arrogance? How much of it is the GM coming out and saying, wait for the parade, and then giving us non-answers for the better half of the last 3 years? I mean, I have a thing, Tom. I do not watch Hahn. The last Hahn I've watched was Pedro's introductory press conference, because I just want to hear from Pedro. I don't listen to a single thing Rick Hahn says unless someone tells me what happened. I have zero interest in listening to him. I'm done with him.
The last thing I listened to Hahn say was when James got laid off, and he went on like the whole soliloquy about James. I'm like, yeah, that's great. You're just using James to avoid answering questions about why your team fucking sucks. We're gonna use this guy getting laid off as an excuse for me to ignore the fact that a national reporter is talking about me trading these players that are supposed to be key to that parade that I told you to wait for. Wait, why are we trading those guys? Don't worry about that. I just think it's terrible that a great writer like James Fegan was laid off, and we've got these assholes that don't even come around here talking about us. God, I hate them so much. Fuck you.
Fair enough to say that is a huge part of it. Is there any glimmer of hope here for you?
No.
Any glimmer for you to get out of this apathy?
No,
nothing.
I mean, what is the glimmer of hope? Like where is it? Dylan Cease will be what? He's got how many years of control left? 1?
2 after this.
2, okay. And then so they're going to trade him next summer, because they're not going to re-sign him, because if he keeps pitching well, Scott Boras is going to want you actually to pay him what he's worth, and they know they ain't going to do that. Luis Roberts got a few years left on his contract, so he'll be awesome. That'll be great, but he's not going to win anything by himself. It's just another Mike Trout situation where, Mike Trout was great for years, but the Angels didn't do anything around him, and they never won anything. And that's kind of the face that Luis Robert is dealing with right now. Eloy is hurt all the time, and they're probably not going to trade him because, again, the one trade that Rick Hahn can say definitively that he won was sending Quintana to the Cubs for Eloy and Cease. Yep. He cannot trade Eloy, because then that is kind of admitting that I fucked up. And that is just not something he has shown an ability to do, or at least a willingness to do. For sure. So I don't think they're trading Eloy. I think they're going to let Cease walk in free agency, or maybe they'll trade him next summer if they're out of it again. I don't know. It's just Yoan's worried about, I don't know, his music career, I guess.
His back's fucked, and he only has 1 more year that's guaranteed next year. There's no way that it's $24 million next year and an option for 24 the following year. There's 0% chance they're picking up that option. There's no way in hell
they're picking that up. Although maybe contract year Yoan, he's going to hit 350 with an OPS of 925.
He's back.
Something. Yeah. He's going to hit 30 bombs, and they're going to sign him to a 6-year extension. It's going to be like, oh, I tweaked something. Oh. That's why my favorite thing about Yoan is, like, you could tell he's a dude that, like, gets a paper cut, and he's just like, oh, and he goes and tells everybody, have you seen my paper cut? Oh, it hurts so much.
He does. Yeah, he does have a bit of a anything bothers him. It feels that way with Eloy too, because when they make Eloy actually play through his injuries, he still hits. Like, he can still hit on one leg. Like, so it's like they just got to figure out a way to toughen him up. I mean, you're right. There's a little here. What's the way out, Tom? What's the way out? How could the White Sox bring you, a guy like you, and I'm just using you as a proverbial you because you wrote the article, but there are a ton of White Sox fans who are like you right now. Season ticket holders that have dropped their tickets, people that were way into this team, love this team all their lives, and they're falling out of it. How can they bring you guys back?
Accountability. I mean, we were in a similar situation with Ryan Storff's other team a few years ago, where the fan base had reached the same kind of point where a lot of White Sox fans are now with Garpax. And for years, Reinsdorf was being super loyal and just running it back. And then finally it reached a breaking point where it's like, okay, fine, I'm going to make the change. Although it wasn't really Jerry, it was his son who did all this. So they bring it in, and whether you agree or like how things have gone since they did that change, the fact is they made the change, so they showed a sign of intent. At least you can't always, go off the results, but at least the process was kind of promising at that point.
Mm-hmm.
For me, at the end of this season, considering the White Sox are 41-60, you said, so they're going to finish with like 70 wins, maybe.
Yep.
This is a team was supposed to be winning the division, who will be probably a top 5 pick in next summer's draft.
Yep.
If you can bring back the guy who was in charge of this, and then you're just basically giving a finger to your entire fan base. Like, if Rick Hahn isn't fired, if Kenny Williams isn't promoted to some kind of other job that really doesn't have anything to do with baseball ops, or like if you do fire Rick Hahn, but then you just throw Chris Getz in his place.
Yeah, that's no good.
Yeah, so it's like, seriously, and I don't know. I mean, I would love to work for Jerry Reinsdorf, because God knows what you have to do to get fired. Like, I would just go golfing every day and then show up and be like, I don't know what we could have done better, boss. Anyways, here's your Christmas gift. And so, but yeah, I mean, unless they show any kind of accountability like that, if this year ends and they don't make any kind of sweeping changes, I'm done. Honestly, I can't say I'm done, but I will definitely remain in the I do not give a shit portion of the fan base.
Yeah, you're going to slide to disinterested. You're not going to follow the team. Yeah, maybe you'll go to a game here or there. Maybe you'll watch if you're with some friends or whatever, and they want to put the game on. But it's not going to be kind of the way it was. And I agree with you. And I feel a lot of people. I see less interaction on Twitter, although that could just be Elon fucking the app totally up. But I think in general, X. I'm sorry,
I've been zeeting all over the place. The hands are sticky with zeets.
I was going to say it's a little too close to skeet. I can't believe they just threw that out there. I was like, okay, this is fine. No, but I agree with you that is where we're trending right now. And a lot of people in this fan base, yours included, have been skeptical of Hahn since even before they rebuilt. I mean, so like it's all been there. When it started unraveling last year, it kind of felt like let's be done with this. Let's go in a different direction. So I hope someone there can take the reins. I'm not sure Jerry's even that engaged at this point. So hopefully someone in there can help us out.
Got to get like some sort of like, what was the name of that Russian general that was like storming his way to Moscow a couple weeks ago? We need somebody in like the White Sox front office to try that same shit. Try to barrel
Seize
into
power.
Jerry's office, seize power, fire Hahn. We need an overthrow, some sort of White Sox coup.
Senor Sox, thank you for the drink. Appreciate that. He says, fire Hahn. Cheers. Pretty much everyone in the fan base. I saw Sox Machine guys ran a Twitter poll. It was like 2,000 votes. It was like 95%, disapproval rate for Rick Hahn at this point. So,
I mean, what is there to approve? Like,
he wears nice suits. I really like the way he dresses.
the 5%'s got to be misclicks. I mean, or someone just playing around.
oh, it's Hans Burners. That's what it is. You don't think that man's on Twitter? He's on Twitter.
Oh, so I hear. Shifting away from the White Sox, a nice little hilarious side note, in my opinion, to the blog was you revealing the fact that you have a friend who hasn't watched The Sopranos, which is unbelievable at this point to me. So how is James Fegan enjoying The Sopranos, and what is it like to have a dear friend who you're like, how have you not seen this show yet?
I wouldn't call him a dear friend. It's more of this unemployed guy who hits me up for money. It is weird to me. Like, it's one of those things. I understand, pop culture kind of stuff. There's the thing, like The Sopranos was so huge that you tend to just think everybody watched it. Like, because everybody at the time, everybody you knew fucking watched it.
Right.
And then he tells me he's watching The Sopranos. I was like, oh, when was the last time you watched it? He goes, oh, I've never seen it before. I was like, what the fuck were you doing? Like, I don't know. He's a few years younger than I am. So I was in college at the time that was running, I think, I can't remember. When did Sopranos air? So like 99 did it start?
Yeah, I think it's 99, ends like 06 or 07, somewhere in there.
So it was
I've watched it through probably 5 times. I mean, like, it's been out there too that you can catch it.
Yeah, it's not like it hasn't been available. Like,
right.
And James is a millennial. He's got all the streaming apps. So like, Yeah. So, but he loves it. He loves it. He's constantly sending me texts and screenshots, and just he loves everything about it. He's giving me like updates, like, "Oh, Furio, what the hell are you doing? AJ, you dipshit. Uncle June eats what?" And that kind, it's like
some great side plots.
yeah.
I was going to ask from a writing standpoint, as being him being a writer and have never watched it. What does he think of the writing of the show?
I have no idea. He doesn't talk about that. He thinks it's probably. He said he can't remember exactly what he said, but he says it's one of the funniest shows of all time. It cracks him up. So, and
I would agree with that.
It's not a comedy, but it really does have some genuinely hilarious and like little just one-liners that aren't meant as like aren't. There's just little one-liners that aren't meant in funny ways that just crack you up.
It's it's like real conversation, and they slide all that stuff in there. And I always love like the malaprops from Little Carmine, and like they load that show. Any favorite characters for James at this point? Is he letting you know that he's a big fan of anybody that's in there?
I think he liked Furio a lot. I don't know if he's got. I know he hates AJ, but again, who didn't fucking hate AJ?
More hate. Oh, hang on, Tom. More hateable, AJ or Jackie Jr.?
Jackie Jr. because AJ you at least have a time to develop some kind of empathy for because he's on the screen, whereas Jackie Jr. is just a prick right from the get-go. At least you could think back to when AJ was just a sweet dumb little kid instead of now he's just a fucking useless sack of shit teenager. You know what I mean?
Yes. Totally agree. I mean, for my money, the most hateable character in that show is Jackie Jr. I mean, what?
Because he's trying to get Meadow, and frankly. No.
You're not allowed to do that, sir.
You stay the hell away from that little angel. All right?
Oh, man. Yeah, that's so many great characters in that show. I mean, Artie Bucco is a great character. Like, the fact that he didn't die 20 times during that show is, like, just amazing. So, Sopranos is one of my favorite things to talk about, Tom. So, the next time you and I, maybe we'll just talk Sopranos, no White Sox.
That's for me. Much more enjoyable show.
Let me get to this drink right here. And this is from Little Yumper. He says, Quasimodo predicted all this. Yes, yes, he did. Bobby Bacala, another fine character. Thank you.
I wonder if James is to the train scene yet. The train
Hope so. Let's close this out with a little college football. I figured, this is what you do. So I apologize for making you do your formal job for a little bit. But I had questions for you. This is specifically from my wife. So I went to a small school, like an NAIA school, Tom. Went to what used to be the old Rosary College in River Forest, became Dominican University. Yeah, that's where I went to college, okay? Mm-hmm. So I did not have a football school, no allegiance. And Chicago is ostensibly a pro sports town. But my wife went to Iowa. She graduated in 2000 from Iowa. And so we watch Iowa football every weekend. In my lifetime, yeah, exactly right. In my lifetime, will Iowa ever have an actual real offense?
I mean, their defense is a real offense.
That's true.
Not as long as Ferentz is there. Like, you're not going to have the quote-unquote real offense. I do think, though, the offense this year will be better. Like, okay. I do think they are earnest in the changes that they're making. I don't think they were just saying they were going to do it because, like, what they've done in the transfer portal, bringing in McNamara and Brown and Eric All, these are guys that they wouldn't go after if they were satisfied with that. And I also, I don't know if Brian Ferentz is going to be any good as a play caller still, but I do think they're going to try. How effective it is, I don't know. I think it'll definitely be better than what we've seen the last few years, but it would be a lot harder to be worse. So right. I would have optimism for this year. I think Iowa's going to be pretty decent. I don't think they're going to be scoring 40 points a game, but I do think they could get closer to 30, which the way that their defense plays, like if Iowa's scoring 28 to 30 points a game, they're going to win 9 or 10 games. Yeah,
absolutely right. I mean, that's the fun part about watching them is like their defense is generally top notch, but the offense has just been frustrating. It's like watching a White Sox offense. I got a year round of watching this shitty ass offense. Another question, my wife wanted me to ask you is, there's an NCAA investigation going on about gambling, and Iowa's kind of at the center of it. Is there anything that's come out of this yet, and how do you think it'll affect the football program going into 2023?
It's hard to say. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some suspensions for players that were involved. And like Noah Shannon he's a defensive lineman for the Hawkeyes, was originally scheduled to be at Big Ten Media Days this week. He announced last week he wasn't going to be making the trip because he's part of the investigation and he didn't want to be a distraction for it. I think it's a smart move on his part personally, but I don't know what the punishment's going to be because honestly, I don't know what the transgressions are. Like if it was Noah Shannon placed a $5 bet on Iowa basketball, can you really suspend him for it? I don't know. So it's like,
don't do that again, dummy.
So if it's stuff like that, maybe they get suspended. I think they're playing Northern Iowa this year. They usually play somebody like that in the FCS. So it's like maybe he gets suspended for that game. I don't know. It really will depend on what the actual violations or whatever you want to call them are. So if they were throwing games, there's probably going to be a big suspension. I don't think they were throwing games because I feel like if it was that serious, we'd have found out by now.
It's kind of interesting how hard of a line the NFL has chosen to take on this, especially on very weird, strange transgressions where they're not betting on even the same sport, and it's just they hold the line
for betting in the facility. Like, what the fuck does it matter?
Right? Everything's on an app these days. Like what? Well, in the team hotel even too. My brother was bringing this up on our podcast. It's like it's in the team hotel. It's like, well, who cares? The team hotel is wherever it is. Like it's.
They're on the team plane. They're on the team plane playing $1,000 a hand fucking cards, but they can't put $20 down on the Panthers to cover against the Falcons. I mean, what the fuck?
Stupid. I'll never understand that. I just
cover your ass. That's all they're doing. I understand it. They can't have the perception out there that their players are also actively gambling. It's just you who is supposed to gamble constantly on their product. Please, here's our DraftKings code. Put out a 25-team parlay and get $20 in bonus bets.
That's the business these days. That's all right. Last thing, I want to switch over to Northwestern shortly. I'm not that interested.
Get my paddle.
I was going to say I'm not that interested in Northwestern football in general. But a couple questions here. Number one, Pat Fitzgerald has been relieved of his duties for a variety of allegations. I saw you and Chip and Danny talking about it on the Cover 3 podcast, and one of the things that came up that really caught my eye and made me chuckle a little bit was kind of where to draw the line with regards to quote-unquote hazing. Now, I liked your point on this because I remember when the Richie Incognito stuff came up and was out in public, and I was in a meeting at work, and I played basketball, so I didn't play football, but I played basketball all the way through high school, and my boss had played football all the way through high school, and a couple of the other guys too, and we were talking, we were saying, all the stuff they said were said between those guys. We had heard worse stuff in the high school locker rooms, and it was never even a big deal. So, where do we draw the line here? Because locker room culture is very different. It's taken very differently. I had a couple teammates that would go after each other about their moms every single day. They were friends. There was no fighting. No one threw a punch. This is just how the banter rolls. So, where do we draw the line at hazing and just this is just how this works? And yes, you wouldn't do this out in public to somebody, but this is its own environment here.
It is. It's one of those. What was the one judge you said about pornography? I know it when I see it. I feel that same kind of way about hazing because I think with the word hazing, everybody jumps to a weird kind of oh my God, bad kind of conclusion, just the perception of it. But when you watch Hard Knocks every summer, and they show the one, every episode, there's always the one episode where they show the rookies standing up in the film room and singing the school fight song to the entire team. That's hazing. But it's not what people think of when it comes to hazing. But that kind of shit happens everywhere. In every locker room. It happens outside of locker rooms. It happens in corporations. It happens,
For sure.
So there's that kind of stuff, which I don't think anybody has a problem with, nor should they. There is the, like you were saying, shit talking kind of aspect to it, which I think is just a part of. That's how men express their feelings.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I love you, but I will tell you to go fuck yourself. That's just how it works. It's how we're comfortable speaking to one another. Your mother's a whore.
Exactly. If they don't bust your chops, you're out. You're not part of it, and you're not part of the group. That's where it's at.
If I have never made fun of you, and then we've had multiple interactions socially, it's because I don't give a shit about you. I don't think about you. I don't care who you are or what you do. If I'm making fun of you, I actually care about you as a human being. So that part to me, as long as there's lines where you can cross there. And I also feel like Like, honestly, like when the word sexual assault comes out, everybody just kind of screeches to a halt. Now, sexual assault is going to be differently defined by different people. Like with naked bear crawls, to somebody that might be sexual assault. To somebody else, that might just be stupid hilarity. And it's like it's kind of trying to figure out where to draw the line, but it's also one of those things where if there is kind of a gray area, like you're not 100% sure, you probably just shouldn't be doing it anymore. I think that's kind of what, and I will say, like, I have talked to some coaches from other schools about this because, like, the way I've presented is like, listen, Pat Fitzgerald was this program. Like, he was the face of the school, not just the football team. Like, he was probably the most famous person in that university. That wasn't, like Mike Wilbon on TV or whatever.
Yeah,
but
right.
I said, so if Pat Fitzgerald can go down for this, what's going on in your locker rooms? And they've said, most of them have said, listen, we can't stop it from happening. We know some of this stuff has to be going on, but we've just kind of made it clear, like anything like this right now, cut it the fuck out. And that is just kind of what the reaction has been across the landscape. But it's also been, again, it's going on everywhere.
Right.
And they might, maybe it's a little more extreme in some instances. Maybe it was very extreme at Northwestern. But I will also say, I've talked to Northwestern players, and to a man, most of them felt like a lot of these allegations weren't what they saw. Like, this stuff was happening, but they viewed it from a very different perspective than the way the people who, made the allegations clearly viewed it. They're not saying that those people are lying. They're not saying that there's anything whatever about it. They're just saying, I took a different view of it than this person does. And clearly this person had a very different reaction to it. And they respect that, even if they don't totally agree with it and they're trying to listen to it. But I've also had somebody, a coach within the program, talk to me about it and said, the one thing you want to do when something like this comes up, like we've seen in recent years, like it's scandals at other schools where the schools just kind of sweep it under the rug and just hope nobody finds it, and then it comes out. So this is what you want to do. The lesson you've taken away from that in recent years is when allegations like this are made, you take them seriously and you treat them seriously. And the way it was told to me was the allegations were made, Northwestern took them seriously. They did an independent investigation into the allegations, which wasn't just like a 3-day thing. Like, this went on for a while. Coaches were interviewed, players were interviewed, all that stuff was done. And at the end, it was a 2-week suspension for Pat Fitzgerald. And the implication was that should tell you everything you need to know about the allegations that were made, that an independent investigator came to this conclusion. And then for Northwestern to go from that to firing Fitzgerald like 24 hours later, it's just, I think that is, how do I phrase this where it's not a problem? But I think that's been the bigger problem for Northwestern than what actually happened or didn't happen. The fact that they kind of made that leap from 2-week suspension to fired. And I think that just caused a bunch of people to be like, what the fuck, huh? So now what happened now? Because like my initial reaction when that happened was, okay, well, there's got to be something new. They have to have found something that they didn't know about. But there wasn't. It was the same evidence that they had to suspend him for 2 weeks is suddenly the same evidence they were using to fire him. So it's like, were you just grossly underestimating these allegations before, and now you come to the proper response, or were you the right response earlier and now you're just reacting to the reaction? I don't know. And I think there's so many different opinions and so many different views on this of what's happened that I don't think we're ever really truly going to know. And I don't know if there is a right answer. Going back to kind of what I said at the start, it's like pornography. You just kind of know it when you see it. And I don't even know if it's that clear cut for this case, obviously.
Yeah, wow. I mean, yeah, it's a tough spot for sure. And mentioning Pat Fitzgerald is basically the university. I would agree completely. I mean, the fact that he is the forward facing. I can't even think of very many players that have gone on and where you're like, oh, there's this Northwestern star. He's the star of the show, basically.
They built that giant athletic facility on the lake. They're proposing to build the new stadium. None of that's happening without Pat Fitzgerald. I mean, the money that's been pouring into the school have been from boosters who support Pat Fitzgerald, who, by the way, not happy at the moment because of Pat Fitzgerald being fired. So I don't know, like, there's still all the hullabaloo about this stadium in Evanston, whether they're going to build one. I don't know that they have the money for it anymore. I don't know if the people they were counting on to give them the cash to help build it are going to be there to help them build it.
The support's gone. Yeah. Oof, man. Let me get to this drink real quick. This Jeff Chester, he says beat the Cubs. I agree. Tom's tuned out, so he's not going to know, but I'll let Tom know if they do beat the Cubs.
I do know that we're playing the Cubs this week.
There's tickets available, Tom. I got an email last week. Lower level tickets are available. Can't believe it. We used to recoup like a third of our season tickets selling the Cubs tickets. That's no more. So
yeah, because like my Cub fan friends are were texting me like, oh, and I'm like, I don't fucking care. You can talk all the shit you want about me, right? You can haze the shit out of me in these texts. I do not care.
With no Pat Fitzgerald, and he was the face of the program. Is the golden era over? Are they going back to the Denny Green days? Like when I was a kid, Tom, Northwestern had the worst basketball team and the worst football team, ostensibly, and that's the late '80s or whatever. They were horrendous. Is that where they're going again?
I think they might have been going there even with Pat. Honestly, okay. I think that if you just look at the state of like private academic institutions right now in the sport in this modern era, like you look at Stanford, who's really kind of fallen off in recent years. You look at Cal, how difficult it's been there. Like with the NIL era and the transfer portal being so important, like it's even if Northwestern has the money and available to be like, all right, this kid's in the portal, let's go give him $100,000 to get him to come here. They've got to get him in. And right. It's most of these kids academically, like it's no different than the rest of us. Football players are no different than the rest of us idiots in that very few of us have the grades to get into Stanford.
Right.
So this 5-star who maybe went to an SEC school to start, but is now like, he hasn't been able to find the field. He's itching to get back home to go to California. Okay, but he's still just a B student, so he's not good enough to play here. We can't get him in. The school board won't let him. So those schools are kind of already at the disadvantage before because of academics. But now in the transfer portal era where when you do fuck up as a football coach, like you recruit a kid and he doesn't pan out, you just go to the portal and you replace him. These schools don't have that. Like if they get a recruit who does not pan out, they're kind of stuck with him and they have to find somebody to replace him. And it's just much harder to do that long term than it is if you go to the transfer portal, especially now where, coaches are getting fired every 2 to 3 years if they don't turn it around quickly.
Yeah, yeah, right. The transfer portal is like if you could pull all the kids from junior college, have them in there in basketball at least. So that was kind of like you get some junior college kids in here real quick, and you Tim Floyd the Iowa State program.
It's one of the funnier things about like the way high school recruiting works now. And I'm getting off topic here, but like the coaches will talk about this where it's like. It wasn't totally like this, but it used to be like if a kid, you'd recruit a kid and he would commit to a different school. And you'd be like, all right, fuck you, get out of here. I'm done with it. It's like now they recruit to another school. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that's great. That's great. We hope that really works out for you. That's a very good job. It's a very good school. You're going to do very well there because you want to keep that relationship because there's a decent chance that a year from now that kid's going to be like, I don't like it here. I want to transfer. So he's going to remember, oh, that coach was super nice to me even when I chose the other school. I'm going to go talk to him again. It's
in a way, I love that.
Oh, that's a great academic institution. You're going to get a great degree there.
Incredible.
The coach there, he's a stand-up fella.
Never before. I love it.
Meanwhile, you're motherfucking him as soon as you hang up the phone. This fucking kid spent fucking 3 months talking to this asshole on the phone, and he's going to go, oh, this fucking school, fuck him.
Got his parents a job. What the hell?
Bought his mom a car, and it's legal now too. They hoodwinked me.
That's right. Well, Tom, thanks for bestowing your White Sox thoughts on what the fuck are you doing here? Talking a little Sopranos, Iowa football, and a little Northwestern and some hazing. Remember, we aren't trying to be writing this show. We're just trying to understand. Do you have anything you want to plug before you go?
The Cover 3 podcast. You can listen to it on all your podcast apps. You can also subscribe to it on YouTube. It's youtube.com/cover3. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays live at 10 a.m. Central. We always have to say 11 a.m. Eastern, but this is the Central Time Zone show. So 10 a.m. Central, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And of course, during the season, Saturday nights, we have the live reaction show to all of the day's happenings as well.
I co-sign the live stream. I lose some work days checking you guys out. So I appreciate it, Tom. Take care. Good talking to you, my friend.
Thank you.
That was Tom Fornelli. Next week, I think I decided I'm gonna do a little trade deadline talk. So I'm gonna see who's available, see what trades actually go down. I mean, we'll stuff the 45 minutes to an hour here with talk of the trade deadline. Thanks again to Tom Fornelli. Thanks to all the 108 family that was up in the YouTube comments. Appreciate you smashing the like button, comments, and of course the drinks and tips as well. We'll see you at the 108 podcast on Thursday. Thank you, and I love all of you. Bye-bye.